Welcome to Good Morning UK, Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid morning show coming to you live here from our nerve centre in the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. And the question this morning, folks, is how are you doing? Please send in your messages. Please tell us where you're coming from. Please tell us how you're feeling today. Please tell us what's on your mind, because this is our show where we are British, where we love the United Kingdom, and where we want to stay together. And this is your respite from the craziness of the world out there. And there's people coming in already. Good morning there to you, Frankie. Good to see you. Great supporter of A Force for Good is Frankie Scotland. Graham, hello. Hello from Bradford. Good to hear from you this morning, Graham. And there's Bill saying hi, and Tommy. Glad to see you, Tommy, from Glen Rothes. So please tell us what's on your mind. We've got quite a bit on our mind this morning, which we'll get to in a moment. But just before we go there, if you are commenting on Facebook, and if StreamYard asks you to let StreamYard see your comments, please do click yes and allow, so that allows us to see them too. Okay, good. Now, we've got a first on the programme this morning. At the top of the hour, we're going to have a guest live, not in the studio, but speaking to us. And that's going to be a great supporter of A Force for Good, one of our longest time supporters. It will be the legend who is Max Dunbar, as we call him. So he'll be calling into the show at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock for a 20-minute conversation with us. And he's going to be talking about the importance of activism. So I know many people will want to stick around for that. Also, just before the top of the hour, we've got our weekly competition coming up also. Now, gosh, what a week it's been. You know, again, another week of ridiculous opinion polls. People trying to tell us that the United Kingdom is on the verge of breaking up. The media, the British media, trying to tell us that the United Kingdom is breaking up. Well, we don't accept that, and we don't believe it at all. Good morning to Alan. How are you today, sir? And Debbie, always good to see you here with us. And Tommy, good to see you, Tommy. I hope you do get that hoodie sorted that you were talking about last night. That was a good idea. Oh, yeah. I don't know about that lady. That's one of the perils of the show is, of course, we sometimes do have folk coming in from all angles, but no doubt our Facebook man will be on that one straight away. Now, a question that I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to put it out up here straight away, is should the Holyrood election be delayed? Should the Holyrood election be delayed? Now, this is likely to very quickly become an issue, because yesterday Nicola Sturgeon said that schools are going to be off for another week, but she wants to bring them back on the 22nd of February, okay? Now, whether that happens or not, who knows? And it's we really don't know, but are we really meant to believe that something like 12 weeks later, if that, we're then going to have an election in Scotland where everybody is going to be going out to the polling stations and standing in line and going into all the polling stations and doing the thing and so on? Are we really meant to believe that's going to happen on the 6th of May? that suddenly Scotland's going to be so open that that's going to happen. I find it difficult to believe that they would go ahead with that. Now, so what's the alternative? The alternative is an all postal ballot. Now, for an all postal ballot of an electorate of 4 million, that has to be getting started right now. You know, we need to be knowing about that right now. The because to do it properly, what it would involve is signature verification of the entire electorate that votes. So there would be literally millions of signatures that would need to be verified if you were doing an all postal ballot. That's if you were doing it properly, of course. So have they even got time for that? So what are they going to do? Are they going to delay it? And if so, is that a good thing or a bad thing from our perspective? I'd be interested in your thoughts on that matter. Good to see Ben. Good morning, Ben. And also to Ibrox Park, looking in from Bangor in County Down. Great to have you. And Sam, good morning to you. Now, Derek says, hi Alistair, sad news, Sir Captain Tom, a true British hero. Well, indeed, Captain Tom passed away yesterday at the grand old age of 100, which was a very good innings. And we were doing a little bit of research into Captain Tom, and he was born in Keighley. And he went on to serve in the British Army in India and also in Burma during World War II. And his original goal had been to walk around his garden and raise £1,000 by his 100th birthday. But it caught the public imagination, and by the end of his jaunt, if you factor in the tax rebates and everything that will occur to the donations, he actually raised 39 million. So that's a not inconsiderable sum. So he did extremely well at the end of his life, and he'll certainly be remembered for a very long time. So God bless Captain Tom, as you say, Derek, a true British hero. Well, Richard says postal votes or social distancing at the polling stations. Well, there certainly would be social distancing, but how long would that take to get through everybody if people were being brought in at that kind of rate? It might have to be over 2 days or 2 or 3 days, in which case that brings all its problems as well. So whether social distancing is simply valid or not, I don't know. Maybe that's how they'll go. Maybe that's what they'll do. Good morning to you, Linda. And as Samuel says, yeah, it would take a long time, and verification in order to proof a postal ballot, which that verification malarkey. I mean, it's okay if you've got a few hundred postal votes, but I've seen it in action, and many of us, as we know, sometimes our signature isn't exact every time either. So it's not a very good idea. I saw a really good video last night. In fact, we shared it on our Rumble channel and also on our Twitter channel, of an American saying what they're going to need to do if this postal thing is going to become an issue in the future is actually thumbprint verification. Thumbprint verification can be easily scanned by computers much quicker than an actual signature can be understood by a human being. And if America is going to go down this whole postal ballot thing, in order to avoid the absolute catastrophe of the 2020 election, where there was more postal ballots being returned than had actually been sent out, if you can believe that, in order to avoid that craziness, what he was suggesting, and I think it's a good idea, is actually thumbprint verification. How that would work in practice, I'm not sure, but that would certainly nail it down to people who were eligible and who were not. Well, the question is, if the USA can run an election with over 220 million voters, why can't the SNP run an election? Hello to you, Iris. But then Tommy comes in and says, well, the SNP couldn't run a bath. That is certainly true, isn't it? The SNP is Oh, wait a minute. Richard says the Scottish administration are already advertising postal voting on the TV. Yeah, right, right. They're maybe going to big that one up then. They're going to big that one up. At a Force for Good, we're against postal voting, really, in principle. We think you should only be allowed to postal vote if, for some reason, due to your health or disability, you can't literally get to the polling station. But for us, our view is if you can get to the polling station, then that is you showing how keen you are to actually vote. And if you can't be bothered to walk to your polling station or get a lift to your polling station or drive to your polling station, then do you even want to vote anyway? So we're not of the school of thought that says you should make voting as easy as possible. No, you have to put certain barriers in the way so that only people who have got an opinion and who are strong enough with that opinion will actually bother to get out of bed and walk down to the polling station and engage in that great act of civic responsibility. Okay, it's like a ritual you have to go through. Go to the polling station. It's like your the ritual. Just sitting and clicking a button on your computer screen or sending something in the post isn't the same in our view of things. Well, that's the danger, Bill, isn't it? The SNP will have a surge of postal votes, and that there is a real danger of that. Iris recognition, says Brown Sauce. Either thumbprint or iris recognition. That's an interesting one. I hadn't thought of that one. And John says what a lot of us are thinking as well. The SNP administration has been grossly incompetent with everything they have autonomy over, so expect the election arrangements to be nothing other than a total farce. Expect nothing less. Absolutely. If we expect nothing less and we get something, then that's probably the best that we can hope for. And Samuel, I agree with the stance that if you can get to a polling station, that would be the best and most secure way to ensure voting is fair and accurate. It should be engaged with. Exactly, it's about engagement, isn't it? Ian says if you can stand in a supermarket queue, you can vote. Yeah, yeah. If you that's true, isn't it? The thing what we've got at the moment though is because all the parties, and they're all to blame, because they're all arguing with each other about more restrictions. If Nicola Sturgeon, with the best of intentions, says we're going to open up the polling stations, and then like 2 weeks after the poll, there's some so-called surge in COVID cases, the Tories and Labour and Lib Dems will be all over her for opening up the polling stations. You know, so she's going to be like, well, I can't really win here. What if there is a surge in cases? Then I'm the bad guy. That's the way she'll be looking at it. And we've got ourselves into this situation because everybody is kind of, all the political parties are just competing with each other to see who can be the most hysterically afraid of COVID. And in that context, she would have to be quite a brave woman to open up the polling stations. Beverly says, feeling all your frustrations with all of the derisive actions of your devolved government. Oh my gosh, yes, Beverly. Well, yeah, Marlene says, SNP must think a May 6th election will work in their favour, otherwise they would delay it. And from our perspective, some people have been saying that if the election is delayed, that gives more time for the shine to come off of Sturgeon and the SNP, more time for the wheels to come off their rickety vehicle if the election is delayed. That's what some of the people on our side are saying. And Lee says, the very same people that support postal voting are always, unsurprisingly, the net beneficiaries. Yeah. So Richard says, we're not living in ordinary laid-back political times with this division between Nat and Unionists. That's so sad, and it's so true. But that's what's happened when the political debate shifts to one issue, then it becomes polarised, and we're no longer just talking about who's got the best idea on taxes or the economy or education. It becomes Nat versus unionist, and we read the national newspaper every day, and we do that so that you don't have to. And some of the crazy stuff in there is just ridiculous. And the Scottish nationalists, they really do believe that when if they get their independence, that all of us are just going to go along with that, and we're all going to just work together to make the best of what would be a very bad show. Well, they're just fantasists. Yeah, that's true, Stephen. The more pertinent question here is the campaign before the election date, knocking doors and speaking to people will not happen. As the SNP control the media, it's a biased election. That is so true. It's so true, and that's going to be the case in London at the London mayoral election as well. When these sorts of lockdowns happen, the only beneficiaries are the people who are in power at that time. For example, there's smaller parties that are going to be standing at the Scottish election. There's new parties that are coming up. I know there's an Abolish the Scottish Parliament party, but little parties like that can't go around and knock on doors or even just do leafleting or even stand on the street with a stall. So they can't get heard about. They are in a real disadvantaged situation when this happens. But the people who are in the best advantage are the people who are already in power and who are already being interviewed by the media, and in the case of Scotland, the people who have actually got a daily show broadcasting courtesy of BBC Scotland, in other words, the SNP. So at the moment, the SNP are sitting very pretty, and all the insurgents, all the people who are coming in, all the people who are trying to provide an alternative are literally physically forbidden from doing so. And so, as you say then, it's a biased election. Couldn't agree more, Stephen, 100%. What paper is the National paper, says Tommy. What do you mean? It's called The National. It's run by the Herald Stable here in Glasgow. And it is just basically a daily activism tool for the Scottish National Party. Now, what I'm going to do right now is we're just going to switch here to our regular 2-minute on this day in British history. Now, today is the 3rd of February, and it was on this day in 1931 that one of the greatest designs in British history was originated. And what am I speaking about? I am speaking about the absolutely incredible London Underground map, which has become one of the classic British designs, seen by millions every day. At least it was seen by millions every day until the lockdown. And it was produced by Harry Beck, who was an employee with the London Underground at that time. And he drew up his diagram in his spare time while working as an engineer draftsman. And his insight was to realise that, unlike most maps, the actual distance did not have to be represented appropriately, and it did not have to be reflected accurately. Okay, and so he was able to squeeze in all the hundreds of stations into a small area of the map. And over time it became developed, obviously, as more lines were put in and as more stations were built. And he died in 1974, but unfortunately he didn't ever benefit from it whatsoever. He didn't get any kind of financial gain from that at all, and in fact throughout his career he lost control of the map which he had designed, a situation which was upsetting to him and his wife. So he died in 1974, but it wasn't until 1997 that his importance was posthumously recognised, and today every London Underground map carries the phrase at the very bottom in very small letters. It says, "This diagram is an evolution of the original design conceived in 1931 by Harry Beck. So we remember Harry Beck today as somebody who has really helped our world, and he's certainly helped. Londoners and tourists get around. And there's Harry Beck there. That'd be probably early 70s, late 60s, that picture taken. And that's his original design on the back behind him. So good old Harry Beck on this day in British history, the 3rd of February 1931, when he started to produce the classic London Underground map. Okay, let's get back to your comments. Richard says that map is iconic. Absolutely. Bill says iconic design copied the world over. Hey Wally, good to see you in here. Good morning. Good morning to you. We've got an interview with the legend that is Max Dunbar coming up at 11 o'clock. Derek says that he doesn't watch BBC One Scotland. You can watch England, Wales or the Northern Irish BBC if you have got Sky TV or Freesat. That's interesting. Alistair Ibrox says, can you turn the volume up, please? We're as loud as we can be here. Loud as we can be, I'm afraid. Anybody else having problems with the volume? I'll speak a little bit louder if I can. Oh, Linda says, watched the film The Dig last night. So much history still unknown. Oh, I watched The Dig 2 nights ago. It's on Netflix. And I really enjoyed it. It's a 2-hour film, and it's about the dig that uncovered the Anglo-Saxon horde at Sutton Hoo. And what I really liked about it is that it was very respectful of British history, and also very respectful of the characters of the time, and very evocative and very quite gentle entertainment, and very quite moving actually. It's a really good film. If you've got Netflix, I think most people would enjoy The Dig, with Ralph Fiennes is the main character, playing Basil Brown, who was the excavator who uncovered the materials in the mounds in the grounds that were owned by Edith Pretty, who was a war widow. So all very, very moving, and especially this happened in 1938, 1939, just before the war, and I think the film conveys this sense of a kind of bucolic countryside moving into danger, and also great sadness that was coming as well for all the characters who all had people that invested in the war as well. So great, really good film, definitely. I don't usually recommend films, but I'd say The Digs is a good one. If you like that sort of British history and that sort of entertainment, you'll enjoy it. Yeah, good point, Linda. Debbie says she's okay with the volume, and also brown sauce. And Catherine, okay, good stuff. Now I can see that the legend that is Max Dunbar is in the waiting room, and we'll bring him in at 11 o'clock. But just before 11 o'clock, a couple of minutes before 11 o'clock, we will have our competition, which again will be for a tin of this classic Walker's shortbread. That's coming up in 2 or 3 minutes. Willie says that the man who excavated it was not particularly respected by the British Museum staff. That's right. He didn't properly get his, a bit like Harry Beck, he didn't get his credit until many years after. In fact, it's questionable whether Basil Brown ever really got his credit until this film came out. And we'll certainly be promoting Basil Brown's death every year now as well, because clearly he's an important part of British history, as indeed is Edith Pretty, the woman who owned the land where these amazing treasures were found down there in Sutton Hoo. Has anybody been to the Sutton Hoo area? Is it worth going? Christopher says, wonderful film and apparently pretty close to the book of the matter. And Alan saying that can be my viewing tonight. Good stuff, good stuff. Alexander says, I've heard 40% of the SNP are unhappy. David Scott just did a video on his Northern Explosion channel. Are you going to interview David Scott? Because I like him. David Scott, there's an idea. We could have a word with David Scott. He's one of our followers on Twitter, and we follow him. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion, Alexander. David Scott would be a good one, wouldn't he? Lovely. Good. We can do that. Now, here is the competition. Okay, here is the competition time. Now this is for this can of Walker's shortbread, which is a really nice branded tin, I should say, with the Ulster flag and the Scottish flag and the English flag and the Welsh flag, and also the Union Jack. And this is shortbread which is stamped as a Union Jack, so it's quite a nifty little gift. Now, to answer the question, please send an email to contact@aforceforgood.uk, and the winner will be announced. The winner will be announced at the end of the program. So send an email to contact@aforceforgood.uk. Please do not put the answer up in the comments here. Send your email to contact@aforceforgood. And the question is, on this day, 3rd of February 1931, what was the name of the man who originated the London Underground map? Okay, what was the name of the man who originated the London Underground map on this day, 3rd of February? And send that answer to contact@aforceforgood.uk, and the winner will be the first person who contacts us on that. Okay, good. Things are going well today. We've got the legend who is Max Dunbar coming in 2 minutes' time. And Alan's wondering if we know much more about the GB News channel. Haven't heard much about that. I hope it is a counterbalance, and I hope they get some new voices on there, and we start to hear authentic unionist grassroots voices. Okay, because politicians are all very well, but there's a lot of grassroots people out there who have got a lot to say and can say it very eloquently. And one of these people, of course, is the legend who is Max Dunbar. And I'm just going to bring him in right now. Okay, let me just do this. Contact, just get rid of this. Excellent. Okay, when Max comes in, I'm going to introduce him to you, and we'll speak for 15-20 minutes with Max. Now, Max is absolutely crucial to the work that we do on the Thin Red Line. Hello, Max. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very faintly, Alistair. It's
okay,
the sound is very, very poor.
Yes, I know. I know you're listening through your mobile phone at the moment, so I will speak up, and I will make sure that you can be heard. Now, before we have a wee chat, Max, I'd just like to introduce you to the to the viewers. Now, I've introduced you as everybody on the Thin Red Line knows you, which is the legend who is Max Dunbar. And Debbie says, hello, Max. And Stephen says, give us a wave. Give us a wave, Max.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Morning.
Good. Well, quite a few of the viewers will know exactly who you are. But for those who don't, A Force for Good was started back in March 2012. And I started it myself, but I couldn't do it on my own. And you were right there at the very beginning with us. And you've been with us from the very start. And I'm certainly very grateful for that. And I know many people are very grateful for your presence, because you are the person who basically helps, or rather organises in a huge part, the outdoor actions that A Force for Good get into. And it was in fact you who put us up to the first ever work that we did, the first ever outdoor activities that A Force for Good did, because you were always at us to get out and to do stuff physically. Now, I also know that back in 2014 at the referendum, you were one of the very few people who actually did anything outdoors, and you did it as part of a small group that you were part of at the time called Britannica. Now, what made you want to get out and do stuff, and what was it that you actually did? This was before you really kind of formalized your role with A Force for Good.
Well, I always felt that there was a lack of street presence, particularly from the main parties, and that the run up to that referendum, there were very few people doing what we were doing on the unionist side. Plenty of people in the opposition, but virtually nobody on the unionist side. The only two people who come to mind really, Jim Murphy went out and took action on the street, standing on his bottle crate, and he certainly got plenty of publicity for the cause doing that. Of course, you always run a risk of being assaulted, basically, if you do that kind of thing, and of course he was. And the other man who was very good for promoting the union was George Galloway. I don't recall him being on the street particularly, but I know that he's got a very strong personality and he's a very articulate man, and he argued for the union very well. Very disappointed with the Conservative Party and with the main parties generally. They really just did very little in the way of campaigning, from what I could tell. And having been on the street with my colleagues, we detected a sort of hunger for action from the unionists, from the general public. I mean, the general public was coming up and saying to us, "Where have you been?" And of course, we were saying, "Well, we're doing what we can. There's only a handful of us, but you know, we're keeping active." And we did that right up until the actual vote took place. And in fact, we produced the leaflets, and this is rather ancient. Don't know if you can see that.
Yeah,
that's one side, and then this is the other.
Yes.
That leaflet was quite effective, and even today, well, right up until today, you still occasionally see it being used by the media in photographs to head various articles and such like.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because you were distributing that on Argyle Street and on Buchanan Street and around Glasgow, and people would take it and they would keep it, and then they would bring it out because one side of it had the Union flag on it.
Yes.
And people would just like use the leaflet to hold up in front of them.
Yeah. So the leaflet actually had a double purpose. I mean, as you quite rightly say, it provided you with a certain amount of basic information, arguments in favour of the union, and also it because the leaflet's quite an attractive, well, in my opinion, it's quite an attractive leaflet with the union flag on it. Served that dual purpose of being used as a flag, basically, and people were photographed holding it, you know, and you still see that today.
One of the things that I remember about the 2014 referendum was whenever our side would try to have a meeting, and it would usually involve a politician such as Gordon Brown or somebody like that, and there was not very many meetings organised, but whenever we tried to do that, the organisers would always hedge about by not giving the address of where it was going to be, and everybody had to keep it quiet, and it was like there was this fear.
Yeah, it was a kind of almost furtive behaviour, which I think was very, counterproductive.
Absolutely.
I think you have to be completely upfront, and that's what the general public like. They're not daft. They can detect that type of behaviour, and it doesn't impress them. You're better to be as upfront as you possibly can. Obviously, you have to take your own personal safety into account. But I think the safety aspect of it was exaggerated. It's too much fear. There still is too much fear. There is a risk of being assaulted. I mean, I've been assaulted a number of times. And that's just something that you have to accept, that there's always that risk, but you have to try and mitigate it, reduce it, and hopefully have people around you who can, if you're speaking, who can defend you.
That's right.
But the thing is, I mean, although you need people to defend you, I mean, there are many people amongst the public who are supporters, and you'll find, if you're a confident speaker, that people will gather next to you in support. So it's well worth going out on the street, well worth it. And there's nothing like human contact. Having human contact and being seen to be not some remote figure, who's seen in the media from time to time, but actually flesh and blood on the street.
Yes.
I think that, and also the fact you're taking a risk and flying the flag. Flying the flag is the most important thing. The symbolism of it, obviously. So it's all important stuff. It's not the be all and end all. Obviously, what we're doing now is also important. But the two things are complementary to one another. And I would say, in terms of effort, probably a third street, 2/3 the administrative media backup. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's, if there's, God forbid, if there is ever another second referendum, all this furtive behaviour of organising meetings with politicians but not telling people in case the Nats turn up, all that has to go. All that has to end. And if
absolutely.
the Nats turn up and they make an absolute fool of themselves, that's on them,
Yes.
There's no benefit to be had from hiding around as if you're afraid to be heard, because a thing that the Scottish nationalists were doing was they would have lots of meetings. Now, of course, the only people who turned up at those were fellow Scottish nationalists, but they would advertise them all around like they had no fear of booking halls and having meetings and so on. And of course, none of us are going to turn up anyway, but they had no fear. But our side, I'm talking about our political side, our politicians, they acted like they were fearful. That
well, they are fearful, many of them.
Yeah.
They are. And it's fear of almost fear of the unknown, because many of them have never ever tried going out in the street and interacting with the general public, doing that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's important that we don't appear to be, furtive or anything like that. And the Tory party, I'd say, are really almost ashamed to be Tories. I mean, we're apolitical in that sense here, but I mean, we can talk about. We're talking about this activity and unionism in general, and how to promote it. And Conservative Party are not aggressive enough.
Yes, I think that's just the nature, though, of the sort of types that they are. Of course, I mean, Conservatives by nature.
I mean, they're too reasonable for their own good.
Very reasonable people, and that's
you need
that's
to be
a good thing, of course.
You need to have a little bit of the carnivorous about you.
Yes,
and the SNP are predators.
Yeah.
I mean, they're predators.
Yeah.
They know, and also they're not the leadership of the SNP are not stupid. I mean, they know, they've studied the techniques, and they know, and that's why they're successful.
Yeah.
So far.
Yes.
Because they know how to work it, and the propaganda techniques. They've obviously clearly studied that from the past, and they put it into operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should add, though, and Derek here reminds us that that, for example, in some areas that the Better Together group, maybe not standing as Tories or Labour or anything, but the Tories and Labour did join together under the banner of Better Together, and they did have stalls in some areas of the country, and they're certainly to be congratulated on that. I think what we were talking about here is the bigger picture of the politicians who were holding meetings and things like that. And Stephen,
I mean, there was. I would say, I would say that in terms of going back to street activity, the Better Together people definitely they made a presence on the street, but it wasn't until very, very short time before the vote. I remember they were definitely out there, but they needed to have been out there sooner and more consistently and more aggressively, to be honest, because that's the only way you can really counter the SNP is by being equally or more determined than them.
Yes, and they certainly are determined. There's no question about that. Stephen gives a nice message here that I'll read out for you, Max. He goes, at the beginning of and it just reflects what you just said there, at the beginning of the 2014 referendum, the main parties never took it seriously. People like Max should be proud they saved Scotland from total catastrophe. Absolutely, Max. And you did extremely well there. And it was your experience in 2014 that said that you used to say to us that we had to get out, a force for good had to get out on the street, and we did that at the first All Under One Banner event in George Square, and that was pretty hairy. Do you remember that day?
It was. The thing is, I mean, any kind of action like that, when you first start it, it's going to be a shock to the enemy. The enemy being the SNP, of course, expect everything to go their own way. They think they're the ones who own the streets, not us. So when a group like ourselves goes out and basically, opposes them physically with our presence, and obviously we're not pushovers, we're not going to be scared off. It's a shock to them, and they'll react. So after a while, it's a bit like breaking in a horse. Eventually, they'll calm down and they'll get used to us. In fact, they'll almost be disappointed if we don't turn up.
They are now. They are now disappointed.
And we look forward to seeing them. We definitely do.
That's right. Well,
and the door is always open. The welcome mat's there if they want to change their minds or maybe become more aware of what their leadership is really standing for, which in my opinion is not independence, is not patriotism. I think we're more patriotic Scots than the SNP leadership, quite honestly.
That's correct, and you've been an important guide as well in helping to refine the message that we do give at these events, which is very much not a hostile message. It's sorry, Max.
There's an interruption there.
Yeah. It's not a hostile message. It's very much one of welcoming and.
Oh, by the way, your sound's better. The volume's improved.
Good. That's something with your mobile there at that end. Well,
all right.
It's not a hostile message. It's a welcoming message that we give, and it's we tell them, and you've been strong on this, that we have to remind them that we're as much Scottish patriots as they are. And in fact, from our perspective, we're more so sensible because we know what's the best interests of Scotland in the long run. Scotland's a great nation, and it becomes even greater by being part of a greater nation called Great Britain. Yeah. So, we are very much as Scottish as they are. And so that's a good message that you've been telling us to make sure we promote. And also, to emphasize the values of solidarity over separation, the values of unity over division, and so on. And these are things that quite a few of these marchers will have. One of the good things that we've also done, of course, is we count these marchers.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
If we didn't, then people watching in from the rest of the United Kingdom or from the rest of Scotland would imagine that Scotland is overwhelmed with Scottish nationalists, when in fact there's certainly quite a few thousand of them who are organised to march, but that's really all it is. When they say they've had 100,000 at the march, we can show it was 11,000.
Yes,
When they
that's
say
right.
they had Joanne Cherry claimed she had 250,000 marchers
Yeah,
back in October 2019, and it was something about, we counted it just around about 12,000, I think it was. So like
yeah,
she was exaggerating by 22 times. But if you're Andrew Neil or you're somebody down south and you're a person who is tasked with talking about Scotland and you truly believe that there's 250,000 Scots voting,
yeah,
marching, then of course you're going to think the union is doomed. I mean,
yeah.
if anybody can get out 250,000, you may as well give up. Of course,
Yeah.
that's never going to happen.
Of
But if
course, the propaganda message of the SNP is not just to their own supporters, but to us. Is to try to make us despair and think that they're totally in control. They're going to win, and we may as well give up. And that's the message that they're trying to give out, and they're quite clever about that. But one of the things I've noticed about the marches is that the ages of the people, it's not as young as they would like us to think. The SNP are always trying to make out that it's a kind of a young movement, like some kind of young revolutionary movement or something. Well, it is a revolutionary movement, of course, but it's not very young. It's mainly older people on these marches.
yes,
And I mean, our friends on the motorbikes, who we refer to as sons of steak bake. I mean, most of them are they're men who are quite old, and many of them obviously have difficulty getting on and off their motorcycles. Maybe
that's
that's why
right.
they have these kind of low riders. I don't know,
That's
but
right. That's a highlight, isn't it? When we like take the mick of them when they pass, it's like not so
oh
much
yeah,
not so much stallions of the highway, but My Little Pony.
yes, yeah, uh,
And they don't like that. They don't like that.
no,
No, no. And they sit and like rev the bikes in front of us to
I know,
intimidate. But
yeah, it's all a bit kind of sad, really, isn't it?
what happened?
Anyway,
I need that back in my life, Max. What happened to that? Whole year has gone past without any of that fun.
I know. I mean, and no doubt they must be missing it too. I mean, we all feel the same.
That's
Whether
right.
whether you're on our side or on their side, we're all missing the activity and getting out in the fresh air, meeting people,
Mm.
meeting the opposition, and meeting friends and supporters, the whole thing. Because we're not in politics. We're in it because we enjoy doing it, obviously as well.
Mm.
Uh, and it's something that we've missed.
Yes.
Definitely have, and I'm sure they would say the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, who knows what's going to happen this year? What with all this carry on,
Mm,
and Debbie saying we all need it back. Absolutely, because it is good. Um, Bonding is a great bonding exercise as well.
hmm
Anybody who's been on the thin red line afterwards, we'll all go and we'll get a drink and so on, and
Yeah.
we'll all like relax, and and at the end of the day, you think that was a blooming good job that we just did there, and
Yes.
everybody enjoys it, and
Yeah.
don't be put off. Initially, it was pretty hairy back in the day, but
Yes.
through your work and the rest of us, we've been able to deal with the authorities very well.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
obviously, the police liaison is important,
yes,
and also liaising with the SNP marshals and so on.
hmm
Um, the whole thing works
yes,
because we are able to coordinate it and keep the risk element to a minimum,
hmm
but to
hmm
get our message across, and
yes,
likewise for them, obviously. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Max, that's 20 minutes have just gone flying by. We're going to get you back on because you've got so much to say and you've got such great political insight because you've been in this game for a long time, possibly even longer than I have, and you very important that your knowledge gets out there. So I'm going to say goodbye to you just now. I just want to say thank you for that fantastic shirt that you've got. Do you just want to there you go?
There we are.
Can you?
That's
There
it.
you are. That's it. That's it. Brilliant. Well, I'll put up the
Okay.
link.
Well, thanks, Alistair, and it's sort of been a privilege to work with and meet all these people who support us, and I'm looking forward to meeting them all again as soon as possible, and it'll be good. It'll be good to get
Yes.
started
Yes.
again, especially in the
Absolutely.
run up to this election in May.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Max. We'll say goodbye and we'll say hello, no doubt, shortly later.
Right, so Alistair.
Okay.
Bye.
Right. Bye. Fantastic. That's the legend who is Max Dunbar, who is a critical linchpin in our Thin Red Line and in our outdoor activism. Now, Max was wearing a AFFG t-shirt there, which you can get from our Teespring store, which we'll put the link up there if I've got it to hand. But go to teespring.com and search for A Force for Good and you'll find our store there. Now, quite a few comments coming in. People really liked to see Max there. Frankie says, very interesting. Max has got so much good information to impart, and now that we've got this snazzy setup here in the studio, we're going to get lots of guests in, probably every week if we can, for 15-20 minutes of talking and education. Tommy, another good job, Max. David says, thanks, Max. Bill says, good guest, I enjoyed that. Excellent, excellent. Derek, can't wait to see you all. Alexander, thanks, Max. Some interesting comments coming in. Yeah. Now, okay, so just I was talking there about the t-shirts that you can get at our Teespring store. Today we are launching a new greetings card, which I'll show you. You may notice that's exactly the same as our poster behind us. And this is an A5 greetings card, which is blank inside, so it can be used for thank yous or good birthdays or even Christmases or whatever. But it's A5 hard card and a really beautiful watercolour there of the day that we were at the Kelpies when Her Majesty the Queen came to open the Queen Elizabeth Canal on the 5th of July. Now, you can get that at our shop, which is aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. I'll put the link up right there for that. That's where you can get that greetings cards. Unfortunately, envelopes don't come with that, but it's up there. So we'll also put the link about that tonight out on our Facebook page. Debbie says, great chat there. Lovely to see Max again, isn't it? And that was good. That was good. Good reception as well that we got there. Max had got that set up very nicely with. Alexander says something that we have to be concerned about. We need to sort out the brainwashed Scots that are pro-EU because that's what's screwing things. Yeah, there is an element of that, undoubtedly. I know that media do make a big thing about it as if that's the bottom line of everything. But the number of Scots who are obsessively pro-EU is probably over exaggerated a bit. I would have thought other Scots who love the EU more than they love the rest of the United Kingdom, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, and it's our job to show people the value of the United Kingdom, and Europe's not going to go away, of course, and with proper leadership, all the good things that are in that relationship with our European colleagues can no doubt continue. So, but that's what's being used at the moment, as you say, Alexander. That's what's being used at the moment to mess things up. Angus enjoyed that interview. Good. Now, competition. Who has won our competition? Well, we have several correct answers, but the very first person who answered, and I shall put the name up. The very first person who answered is this person, and this person will receive the prize. Debbie. Well, I think it's right that you got that one there, Debbie. You've been watching all morning, and that will get sent to you today, and that will get sent to you this afternoon. So maybe you get that tomorrow or the next day. But congratulations, we have a winner, and it's Debbie. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's been great. Congratulations. We're going to have a competition every week. We've got some more of those fantastic wee tins to get through. Frankie says congratulations. Tommy says well done, Debbie. Alan says well done, Debbie. And Debbie goes woohoo. Fantastic. Okay, Willie has to go. Well, we're just going to be shortly finishing anyway, Willie. Glad to have you in and watching. Frankie says a force for good #1. And also congratulations to Debbie. And Raymond says well done, Debbie. As does Robert. Robert, another great stalwart from our thin red line. Look forward to seeing you again, Robert, when things get back to normal, as they say. And Tommy says another good show, and with brown sauces. Really loving your new studio. We like our new studio, and especially, of course, this has been built up over time. These posters have been created over the last 3-4 years. That's a painting of a photograph that we took, and of course this lovely wooden flag that we've got here in the background, which was created by Dramatic Scotland Creations, who do amazing wooden flags and bespoke flags of your choice. If you've got a flag in your head and you've got the design, do send it to Dramatic Scotland Creations, and they may be able to do something for you. But that's a really nice flag that was done for us, and we thank Kaelin for doing that. Really good. Folks, it's been a blast today. We're going to be back with Good Morning UK Have Your Say next Wednesday at 10:30. And this is the end of our 4th episode. We'll be uploading this to our Rumble channel and also a BitChute channel, as well as keeping it up there on our YouTube channel. So we'll be backing up all of these episodes for posterity. And they're also loaded as podcasts, which you can get on our podcast page, again on our website at aforceforgood.uk. Go along the top, click on podcast 1 or podcast 2, and you will be able to listen to the podcasts of these programs. So folks, thanks for checking in. Debbie says great show again. Catherine says should be interesting next week. Absolutely, won't it? We'll see what's been happening with the Salmond trial next week. That's coming up, and that could be a big one, couldn't it? Alexander says a great show. Derek, enjoy the show. Tommy, thanks again. And Samuel says another great show. Thanks for checking in, Samuel. So, just remains for us to say thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day and stay safe. All the best from A Force for Good. God bless the United Kingdom. And God save the Queen. See you next week.